I'm here, and it's time for my first ever console add-on review. And what better add-on to start with than the Game Boy Advance e-reader?
Released in 2002, this card scanning device seemed totally futuristic. Surely this is how games will be played in the near future, entirely on cards without any bulky and expensive cartridges or discs. Well, not quite. Priced at around $40 US, not including cards and other required accessories, the port e-reader failed to catch on in America and lasted a short 2 years without much ever being produced for it. Its unsuccessful stint in the US and Australia prevented it from ever being released in Europe. However, it did well in Japan.
So did this interesting piece of video game history deserve its fate? Let's take a look at what it did right and what it did wrong.
First of all, at the time of its release, the Advance SP didn't exist yet, so it's only compatible with the original Game Boy Advance, making it difficult to record. Luckily, it can also be used with the Game Boy player, which will be much easier to get footage of. However, this brings up a major issue with the e-reader. On top of only working with the original Game Boy Advance, most of the cards require you to have more than one Game Boy Advance and a link cable. Like I said earlier, they hadn't released the SP yet, so there was no reason for any kid to have multiple Advances. You had to either spend even more money on a second Game Boy, or be antisocial enough to play a one-player game at a friend's house using their Game Boy too, and just hope that they'll be patient enough that they won't start throwing things at you out of boredom. And once you factor in the cost of that second Game Boy, it's now about what the GameCube cost when it launched. And that's not even counting the cost of cards. So once you've shelled out a couple $100 for all the things you need for this baby to work, cards, link cable, and a second Game Boy, you better hope that once you finally use it, these cards are awesome. Since the library for this add-on is so small, it won't be too hard to take a look at each individual set of cards. Unfortunately though, I don't have any of the Mario cards, or any of the rare promotional cards, so we'll have to exclude those. Let's start with the classic Nes Series. The Nes Series contained 13 NES games, each game fanned out over a series of 5 cards, which had to be scanned front and back to get the entire game. Each package only contains one game, and to get all the games would be about $65 back then. $5 a package! This adds even more to the cost of this thing so far, and is it worth it? To play 8-bit games on a 32-bit system? Hardly. Let's move on to the Animal Crossing E-Series. These cards could be used with the GameCube Animal Crossing to unlock items, town tunes, and designs. Once again, you better have a deep wallet, because to use this you need to have yet another accessory. The Nintendo GameCube Game Boy Advance cable could link the Game Boy Advance to the GameCube so that you could use the e-reader and other games with GameCube games. Granted, you could get some rare items this way, but once again it doesn't seem worth it. The Pokemon Battle e-card series is next, and you can guess that this is why I bought the e-reader in the first place. This set contains trainers to battle in Mouse Deep City, and Enigma Berries Norman gives to you. You can only have one Enigma Berry at a time, and they couldn't be traded to other versions in any way. The only effect was that a Pokemon holding it could restore HP if hit by a super effective move. If you battle any of the scanned-in trainers, your Pokemon don't gain any experience points, and you don't earn any prize money. This makes me wonder why they even bothered implementing this feature if it has no lasting effect on the game, especially since this is one of the card sets that require a second Game Boy Advance and a link cable to use. An Eon ticket card was given away in 2003 and could be scanned in to trigger a Latias or Latios event, which I think is actually pretty cool. Honestly though, it'd be cooler if you couldn't already catch them normally within the game. I know you can only get one, but if you already have 2 Game Boys and a link cable required to use the card, you probably have both versions anyway, and you could just trade yourself for the other. Many of the trading card game Pokemon cards released at the time included scannable dot codes as well, that could display Pokédex data, unlock extra moves in the trading card game, and if you were lucky enough to find one with a strip down the side, you could get a minigame or a surprise. The games are fun, but once again it seems silly to spend so much money on just minigames. Now, it's easy to see why the e-reader failed in America. It seemed nothing more than a gimmicky way to suck parents' wallets dry. The new technology, which only had the upside of potentially eliminating expensive game cards, only ended up making things more expensive. Difficult to connect and more of a hassle to use than the content contained on the cards was worth, the e-reader was quickly discontinued and faded quietly into obscurity. Why then did it receive such a different reaction in Japan? Perhaps it appealed to collectors and die-hard Nintendo fans more so than it did here. Whatever the reason, the e-reader is actually considered one of Nintendo's only successes when it came to add-ons, when compared to the Famicom Disk System and the 64DD. Even if they couldn't expand their success overseas, the e-reader was still produced in Japan up until the discontinuation of the Game Boy Advance.
Since the e-reader isn't actually a game, subjecting it to my rating system wouldn't make very much sense. So instead, we'll let it off easy and move on to our next review. See you then!